to Truth or Politics. I'm your host, Darlene Price, and tonight we have a very, very special show. Tell it's been a while. Special show on cyber threats and utilities. And we have some extremely good guests here tonight, some real experts in these fields. First off, we want to say welcome back, and we want to thank MBR TV. We want to thank all of our people on Facebook and everybody behind the scenes with Truth or Politics tonight that make Truth or Politics happen. And we want to thank our usuals, the folks who helped me start Truth or Politics way back then, 13 years ago, Larry King and Dan the Man Gibson, Truth or Politics in Pulaski County. We want to thank everybody for being here tonight. And to get this started too, let me go ahead and introduce our guests. First, we have a Highland Telephone Company. And you guys don't just do telephones, you do internet too, right?
Broadband and video.
And we have Jared Carson and Mark Patterson here tonight. And then we also have them with the McCreary County Water District, because these are utilities that can, potentially be hit with cybersecurity or something. We have Mr. Derek Taylor with us tonight. And what got me started on this is, and we've talked about having a show about this for a while, and every time I would plan to have a show about this, we'd have something else would come up, and we'd have a show on something else. But I want to talk about two things I think everybody, after you watch this show tonight, watch this show first. Then go and watch these two shows. One of them is 60 Minutes. They did a whole thing on, it's called How Secure is Our Electric Grid? And tonight we're going to talk more about, water and phones and internet. But, the electric grid can also affect, water and that stuff. So, again, this documentary that came out less than a year ago, again, it's called, 60 Minutes did, it's called How Secure is Our Electric Grid, scared the bejesus out of me. It just did. And I really implore everybody to go watch this. Also, Dennis Quaid recently came out with a documentary. It's called Grid Down, Power Up. It's by Paul Revere Films. And it's about kind of the same thing. You can watch that on Amazon. After watching these two documentaries, it really worried me about, and recently, and I'll let you guys go first because of what just recently happened. And I was surprised pleasantly that you guys got back online so quick. In our county, we had some idiots, and I'm sorry, I'm comfortable saying that, went and cut down telephone poles. And, these are poles also that had, the internet.
Power optics on it.
Power optics. And not just one. How many poles did they get?
They got three.
Three poles.
Part of another.
And part of another. So, this was a huge problem because we live in a rural community, and I've got friends out in California and stuff that have been here. They know how rural this is, but I got friends that watch this that don't know, how rural this is. We live in the middle of the Daniel Boone National Forest. I literally live in a game preserve, and I have bears walking through my yard on a regular basis. We have a lot of retirees that live very remote, and they count on cell phones. They count on the ability to be able to dial 911. And I was amazed, pleasantly amazed, how quickly you guys got up and running. It was how was it? It was with under 24 hours.
Yeah, it was about 12 hours.
12 hours, back up and running. So kudos to you guys for that. And so I'm going to pitch it to you guys first. Tell us first off what exactly Highland Telephone covers, because I know you cover more than telephone. And then what are your protocols and stuff in case of and I want you to repeat. We always have the show before the show where we're sitting around talking, and I'm like, this is what I want to get on film. It's just, but anyway, one of the things you said is we get hit every day. I want you to talk about that and how you counter that, and then we'll go to you, and then we'll just have a group conversation. So go ahead.
I'll start out and just kind of explain Highland Telephone.
Okay.
Highland Telephone Cooperative, we serve McCreary County, Scott County, and Morgan County in Tennessee, and a few edges of some other counties and stuff. But we've been around since 1955. We're 100% fiber now. We've been that since 2015. McCreary County was the first county that we cut to fiber, so it was probably done by 13, wasn't it? Something in that range. So, but we still have copper on the poles, and that's what the thieves were after, is the old copper we left on the poles. And unfortunately, from the ground, it all looks like So they'll cut the fiber as much as they cut, as they
Because
cut
they don't
the
know
copper.
which is
Yeah,
which.
and so, but that's what they're doing is they're cutting the poles down to get usually they used to just climb the poles and then they'd cut it, but I guess they were too lazy to climb, so they decided to cut the poles down. So,
They had a
but
chainsaw and chainsaw a couple of them, and then finally went to an axe.
yeah, so, but, as I say, we provide, of course, telephone service. That's what we were created for and started with. When internet came along in the late 90s, we started doing that, and we've grown through the years from dial-up modems to ISDN to DSL. And then, like I say, in about 2010, we started converting to fiber, and we've continued to see and have our network grow and grow and grow. We started when you had a 1 gig backbone and all this, and we're in the process of upgrading to a 100 gig backbone right now for the network and stuff. So we've been all through the growth process of this, and as we talked about earlier, before, as you said, before the show, that we're we're actually governed by, of course, the Kentucky Public Service Commission in Kentucky, but we're also on the FCC, so they have standards that we have to meet as far as security and stuff like that. And one of your questions was, what if the power grid goes down? Well, everything we do is generator backed up and runs off, a 48 DC current that comes off batteries. The batteries are charged by generator or the electrical system, which is backed up. So there's never a drop in the equipment or anything like that. And I'll let Jared talk to it, but we are hit, we can watch it and you can see there's something trying to attack the system all the time.
Yeah, well, one of the things too that I want everybody to talk about too is ransomware. Because one of the things that's happening, and another reason I decided to have the show in northern Kentucky, I think it was the water district up there, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
It was a water district, and then also in Pennsylvania, all over. These hackers are doing what's called ransomware, and that's where. Now, if I'm wrong describing this, tell me, because I'm not. You're more about this than I am. Okay, ransomware is where they hack the computer system of the utility, right? Am I right in that? And then they send a message. We have all your data, or we've at 0 dark 30 we're going to shut you down, or they've already shut you down. If you want to come back up, pay us this much money and send this money to this thing. So and in Pennsylvania they were in a world of hurt, and it was a pretty good big grid up there, and they ended up paying the ransom. So and we're talking millions of dollars. So. And so people trying to do that to you too.
Yeah, you see that, but one of the key factors where you talk about that type of attack is not truly a hack. It's a phish. I'll send you an email that has you an attachment to open it because I'm already in the network. I open that attachment and I brought it into the network. That's how you. So the first thing you've got to do is educate your employees and your people.
Yeah.
And we have training on what's phishing. And if you've got a question, go up and look, hit on the thing and see if the word, if it's a company see if it's spelled right. See if there's if it was a .net, it should be a .com.
That's up in the little bar where HTTP, that bar.
Yeah,
Okay.
if you go up and you'll look at that.
If
Yeah,
there's
or
they'll
an
even make it
email
similar.
address.
It'll be
You better
so. It'll
be so close you can easily overlook it. You better not open if you got any questions.
That's how they steal people's Facebook pages too.
Exactly. So it's the same thing. You get that. It's got something you open, and once done that, you've opened the gate into the network at that. So it's the first thing you got to do is educate your people not to not fall for phishing schemes. Several years ago it was thumb drives that would be left around and somebody would do it, but the day of thumb drives are pretty much over with. So it's something more. It's a phishing scheme.
I have a question. You said that you notice occasionally, pretty regularly, something trying to happen to your machinery or to your communication system. Can you describe that a little more in detail?
Yeah, so,
Good question.
to preface that, there's, when you talk about cybersecurity, there's a lot of different levels of it, right? There's everything from a DDoS attack, which stands for distributed denial of service. And typically, what we see on that is a gamer. The gamer is mad at another gamer, and they, through bots probably, send a lot of traffic to that. They determine what that person's IP address is, and they send traffic there. Seems innocent enough, but the problem with that is that can actually lock our network up.
Yeah, they can
If it's
bog
big
that,
enough.
bog that provider. That
Yeah, so it's not
people
necessarily.
don't know what those places are. Those places are big buildings full of data machines.
Yeah.
And if one gets overloaded, it'll lock you out if that's your machine.
Yeah, so that's just on one level, and like I say, it seems harmless. I may be aggravated at Derek because he's beating me at whatever, and I send a DDoS attack to him. And this could be people from all over the country. So you see those the world. So we see those.
Yes.
We have on the outside of our network coming in, because we have multiple connections to the web, to the cloud, I'll say, to the internet.
Yes.
Diverse paths from within our network and to that for resiliency and redundancy.
Can I ask you another question?
Sure.
Say a foreign power wanted to shut you down.
Yeah.
Say they had several from government employees from their nation, maybe 100, who knew what your IP was and intended to shut you down. They couldn't they?
Well, anything can be done, right? So the safeguards that we try to put in place for that type of thing is outside of our network, where our first hop routers are beyond us to the other ISPs that are around us, our neighbors. We have sensing gear out there that looks for like a lot of traffic destined for a particular IP or a small group of IPs, and it black holes that traffic before it ever gets into us.
So they have worked on providing a defense against it.
Yes. Yeah, so we do that, and that is one of the things that we see daily. And a lot of times it is, when you look at that and you drill down and see where those come from, those IP addresses that it's coming from are out of the country. A lot of them are Russia.
I know.
Yeah. So we block that outside. Once we've started doing that, we don't have to deal with that a lot internally because it doesn't make it in. That's not saying it can't.
But you guys have gotten to where you can recognize this stuff. That's
Well,
kind of like
We don't recognize it, the equipment.
equipment recognizes
But there's
it.
nothing that keeps Russia from maybe routing it through another country that it wouldn't,
Sure.
they wouldn't recognize.
But the
Yeah.
same thing starts over again.
Yes.
You look at the IPs, we black hole the IPs. It's based on the IPs. If you see a massive group of this coming from a set IP, then you black hole that IP.
Yeah, so
How quick does this
there's
process
bad
happen?
actors that we don't accept any traffic from, period. And if we were to have a customer internally that had a legitimate business case or something with that country,
Yes, yes.
we could probably work with them to do that, but in general, we black hole the bad actors.
It's a constant cat and mouse game.
It is.
It is.
Now, and one thing that across the board, whether it's a DDoS attack that's between two gamers or whether it's something where they're trying to get into, I'll say, the control plane where they could affect valving and stuff maybe that you guys have and affect flow of water or get into our actual network or get into the power grid where they could actuate cutoff breakers and different things and actually affect the physical. That's a wide gamut, but the detection of any of that stuff really is looking for this out of the ordinary and the anomaly. It's just like that email address or that website that's a little bit off.
Yeah.
And it's not, or it's unexpected.
And you
I
have
didn't ask for this. Why is somebody asking for this? You really got to be alert. And then even the equipment that detects it, it's geared to do that.
And you've got software like designed for that.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
That's a good defense.
Here's and then we're gonna ask you the same kind of stuff. So he gets it easier because he gets I get it from you first. Here's the other thing too that concerned me because looking at some of the watching these documentaries and some of the things that's happened that they covered in these documentaries. One of the things that happened was one of these big utilities got hit with ransomware and they shut it down because they wouldn't pay the ransom. They had no insurance. So people were like, okay, well, who are you insured by? Well, we're not. And it's like, what do you mean? You're this big utility and you don't have any underwriter, you don't got no insurance. So that's the next question. And I didn't even think about that until somebody private messaged me. Ask these guys, go ahead.
Well, another thing to watch for, because a link might be typed out and look correct, but whenever you mouse over and hold it on there, then you can look down at the bottom of the browser and make sure that it says the same thing as the link you're about to click.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's a good
Yeah,
point.
that's a good point.
That's right.
But insurance, okay, so if something happens, okay, let's say, you know,
We're required by the FCC to carry cyber insurance, and we have there's national carriers that's what they specialize in.
right,
So yeah, there is that to cover that,
okay,
but you hope you don't ever get to the
That
point
point.
where you have to pay the ransom. So you want to do, as I talked about, employee education, and then you want to have a couple of different layers on there to protect you, with also a recovery plan.
right.
So, and we have all those in place.
We were discussing this a little bit before the show. When I was in the military, I did research on a little island in South Pacific called Johnson Atoll, and our main job was to study nuclear detonations and their electromagnetic pulses that were generated by those detonations. What type of protection do any of y'all have against that?
Or like a solar flare, which would
Or
be
solar flares
similar.
that
Solar
they say are
flare.
going to really. It's similar, but not nearly as destructive.
Right. We don't have anything specific for electromagnetic pulse like that.
There are defenses, but I don't think the civilian areas of utilities have decided it's that pertinent yet, but I think it may be coming.
Our federal
It's
government
getting
has
pertinent.
decided that that's what the 60 Minutes really gets into, and this one too, is our federal government, they've known about this for years, and people have been screaming, engineers like you, hello, you better be doing something, or our whole power grid could go down, and they still haven't done anything, and this is like years later, they've known about
You're at a
it.
level thing because, you got these organizations here, it's taking in power.
Yeah.
Okay? They don't have control of the power coming in. If you take out the power that's coming in, then everybody's out of the game. You probably have about a 72-hour backup in your gas and your.
That won't work either.
And it won't work either, but I'm just saying, you said you were backed up. So most FEMA plans are about 72 hours. You're supposed to have 72 hours of food and water, on and on. Most utilities are backed up. There you see the propane tanks sitting outside the cell towers. About 72 hours backup is what you have.
But
Yeah,
none of
normally
that
we
will work
engineer ours a
unless
little
it's protected.
longer than that, at least usually about a week, as far as if we're on the generator
Yeah, if you're on the
running.
generator.
Now, the batteries themselves are usually designed to handle, depending on the size office, from 8 to 24 hours on just batteries.
Yeah.
And then your generator
Generator kicks
starts
in,
charging the batteries again, and you've probably got a week of time on
Yeah.
that. But, yeah, I mean,
Here's-
there's a logical end to
Once
any
you
of
get
it.
up here, everything else cascades.
But here's
Yes.
something I thought
But
of.
it's easily protected against. All you've got to do is put a shield around, a metal shield around it, tinfoil, metal shield of some type around your
Faraday
device.
cage.
Faraday cage,
Faraday
exactly. That's what it's
cage.
called.
That's for the solar flare.
No. Well, it will work for solar flares too.
It'll do
but
both.
It
It'll
can
do
for
both.
either one, yeah.
Here's something I thought of, is everybody talks about generators, and I'm like, okay, why isn't somebody making solar generators? Where's the solar power generators? Because
Somebody does.
if we had solar power generators also, not just gas generators, but solar for everything. Because, my husband went out and bought these little generators, we're setting everything. And I'm like, okay, so what if the gas stations go down, honey? Then what?
They will.
He goes, well, we're
They
screwed
will.
then. And I'm like, okay, then get us a solar power generator. Of course, Austin goes like this, like, like nothing I do,
It'll fry that solar power generator right along with everything.
It's a matter of
else that's not
storage. I mean, your solar's going to gather during the day, but you got to store what you're not using
and batteries.
in batteries.
Well, I mean,
So-
that's for like a non-solar,
Electromagnetic
electric
pulse.
post, for something else, like just.
For anything, if the grid goes down, if you're using solar, you still got to store the power.
Yes.
Okay, well, never mind. You might get ideas. Okay, so let's talk water.
Okay.
What are your protocols? I was very impressed with what he was saying. Again, the show before the show, they came over this morning, was talking about how the state's requirements, but even before the states came out with these requirements, you guys were on the ball, and I was very impressed with that, what you've done. So what is McCreary County Water District, what is your protocols and stuff to keep us in water?
Well, like you said first, your first line of defense is always your employee education.
Right.
Learning what things to look for, possible compromised emails. You want to know how to identify those things. But once you get your employee education in place, like for us, we used to use our billing software. We used to use a program called eGov. It was more server-based. It was more tangible. But we've since then, because of stuff like we're talking about now, we've moved more to a cloud-based system. What's called BIP. It's both by Software Solutions, but it's a different type of system. We also, like you were talking about redundancy, we have a localized server that we keep in-house, that anything that has changed, we update it daily. That's disconnected from the network completely, and we do it by hand. So if a situation was to arise where we were compromised,
It'll be correct.
all of our information we have stored offline of the network, so we can go and retrieve.
So somebody can't say, give me, if you want your information back, you gotta give me $1 million. You already have your information.
We already have that information that's disconnected from the network. That's correct.
Okay, and see, what always scared me about the cloud, because it seemed like to me, well, wait a minute, if you're storing information off-site somewhere, wouldn't that be easier for a hacker to get to the cloud? And then, but then I don't know, but I think I'm wrong about that, right? Or correct? Or
Well, when you have a cloud-based system, you have a third party that's kind of like
Right.
a watchdog for that. That's their whole platform is, we run this cloud for you, we monitor this program for you, we have these servers for you. But anything that's, like we were talking about earlier, the thing that we have that working for us is we don't have to store any personal vital information that could be used for identity theft or anything like that.
you don't have social security numbers.
Social security numbers, credit card numbers, none of that is stored on our system at all. The only thing that we store is maybe personal information, like your first name or your name, your address, and with maybe a copy of your driver's license. That's all that we store on our system, just for safety protocol purposes. Like we use Invoice Cloud for our online payment, but same system. Their entire platform is, they're top of the line as far as their cybersecurity. And they use something that's called PCI compliance, like where everything is like a fraction of the information that can be seen. You guys probably know what I'm talking about. But that's to kind of go off on a different direction, with the water utility, we have two different systems. We have our billing system, and then we have our operation system. So kind of what you guys were talking about, like the DDoS program, or the DDoS hack, disruption of service, that would be more for our operations. And we've made an effort, even though we push forward with technology, we make an effort to make sure that we can have the ability to go offline and operate everything manually.
Okay, so if they do, something happens manually without the computer, you can function and get water to everybody.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can view our entire system from my phone or my computer,
Mhm.
and I can operate pumps in the system from my computer or even my phone. But I can physically go to the location and disconnect it from the network and turn it on with my hand.
Okay.
So that's something that's big for us.
Yeah, so was that the breakdown of what happened in northern Kentucky? They didn't have that, or what happened? Kind of explain without bad mouthing them. I mean, we don't have to say where exactly it was, but what
some of the
happened there?
specifics of that situation, I'm not 100% clear on. I've heard about other places like in Florida, there was a water utility. They were a little bit more integrated with technology in their treatment process.
Mhm.
We do everything locally in our treatment process because of, well, just for instance, the situation in Florida, all their chemical feeds were controlled by their computer. So hackers got into their chemical feeds and began to adjust their chemical feeds going into the water treatment
Oh
process.
my gosh.
So that was a big deal.
Yeah.
That's safety of the public. That's no longer identity theft. You're dealing with public safety at that point. So that's something else. Like we separate those systems as much as we can. For like in our water treatment process, for us to adjust the chemical, our operators have to physically go to that system and adjust it by hand. There's no chemical adjustments or anything like that online.
Cool. Okay. Michael.
I'll just say, again, all this is grid dependent. If the grid goes down, you don't have power to your pumps.
That's
You
correct.
probably have backup.
We do. We have a fleet of mobile generators that we've constructed, and it's by design that we want them to be able to have sort of a universal application to where whatever system we have goes down, we can mobilize and take it to that system. We have enough mobile generators that in the event of an emergency, we can get water to the public.
Most of that is between 72 hours a week, maybe 2 weeks at the top end. And most emergencies fall within those timelines. Most emergencies fall in those timelines. You probably want to go talk to Texas a little bit. They may have a little different view about, about what happened.
Well, no, explain, because that's important, how that, because that was, what, 2 years ago? People froze to death. I mean, it was horrible.
What you have in a lot of grids is they've been privatized over the
Right.
years. And the investment back into the grids have not occurred.
And they pocketed the money.
So you have these grids who are pretty antiquated, and they're not necessarily like Texas was not tied into any other grid but Texas. Now last week, guess what they signed? They tied back into another grid that's located next to them. But it cascades. If you have one grid go, it can cascade in another grid, and cascade in another grid, and on and on.
What's what the 60 Minutes thing says. It says.
The biggest problem that you have is transformers right now, because there's a limited amount of transformers.
That's it.
They take years to be built. Most of them are now being built in China, and there's not a big inventory. And we do have some people who have been going out at the power stations and shooting. There have been attacks, actually physical, shootings on these transformers.
Didn't that happen in Pulaski County? Not too long
I don't know about Pulaski, but if you kind of watch it, it's happened all over the nation, different places. So, it's not a 72-hour emergency or a week emergency that should concern you, because everybody's prepared for those. Like I say, even FEMA tells you as an individual, you're supposed to have food and water in your home, your place, maintain at least 72 hours. But once you get beyond that, as they did in Texas, it starts, things start getting Wild West on you. So
once those antiquated systems start cascading, transformer stations start getting overloaded.
Texas was within several hours of being non-recoverable.
Here's what this one expert said. This was on the 60 Minutes program. I go watch this. It'll scare you to death. Okay, he said 20 substations. All it would take in America is for gunmen or whoever to take out 20 substations. 20 is not a lot of number. That's not a big number. 20 was all it would take. And then what you just described, you would have a cascading effect like dominoes all across the nation to a total blackout. And it would take, not just a week, not just 72 hours. It would take, months.
Not years.
If not years, to get this back up.
And if you look at if an attack took place, it took out, and I read the scenarios all the time, 2 major cities. You took out New York and Chicago in the dead of winter with no power, it's not going to take long for people to start spilling out of there pretty quick. But yeah, it's, if people knew how fragile most systems, RECC is a good system, but RECC is just a part of another system that's a not part of another system is part of another system. Same thing with KU. So yeah, the grid, if you've been watching the videos, the grid is scary
Yeah, you send me these
fragile,
videos and I'm
scary
like,
fragile.
oh my God, I have nightmares. You
Well,
know, it's like,
It's all good till it ain't good. That's kind of Larry's rule. And when it ain't good, it really ain't good.
I'm hearing that you gentlemen are dealing very well
yeah.
with the problems that you're having today. But I'm also hearing that this thing they've just been discussing, cascading of power companies, electromagnetic pulses,
Solar.
and
first.
solar flares, and we haven't mentioned AI or quantum computers yet. So those two are going to prevent a lot of big problems or cause a lot of big problems. And I just wondered if anybody anywhere is starting to develop any defenses against any of those.
It's
'Cause
almost a double level.
Right now, it's so fragile. There's so many ways that it can fail.
You know, AI is a threat, but you go out
Artificial
there,
intelligence, I do know
there
that.
are poles and there are lines, and I mean, there's actually physical things that you have, you know, that you can be taken out that will take the system down. So yes, AI is an issue, but if you go out 20-some substations or some combination on the grid, you
That's
know,
what that guy said. They only take 20 substations,
Yeah.
and then they show pictures.
the one
Scary.
in
You gotta watch
California was
this.
shot to death. I mean, they really
Yeah,
shot
they
the
showed
crap out of
that.
that one.
Well, they showed that,
Did they?
and they showed these substations. So they went around 60 Minutes and filmed some of these substations, and they're just not guarded. There's just like a chain,
Yeah, just chain link
a
fence.
shabby chain link fence that some kids have cut through, and just so. Even though you guys have done your job, if
Real
the
good job.
government has not done their job in protecting the grid, and it sounds like they have not, according to this expert. I mean, he was like,
Well, let's back up. Not necessarily the government. Maybe government has oversight, but a lot of these are privately held
Right.
companies, and they're not doing the investment that they need to do to keep their system up.
Right.
Then that's only private investment, like Texas. You
I know, but the
Highland-
government
look
should
at
be
what Highland's done in
regulating
updating us into fiber. I mean, we're just top of the line anywhere in the nation.
Right.
But if you have privately held grids that are not putting the investment into those
Which
grids
is
they need
Texas.
to do, then you know it's extremely fragile. And it's not just, well, gee, you know, the one up in New York went out, that doesn't affect me. Well, it could. Once they start cascading, it can stop or not stop across the country.
Well, but it's the government, the
That should
federal
have
government,
oversight.
that should have oversight of
Yeah,
these
most
things.
of those were private. You know, when Roosevelt came into this country, I remember my mom talking about we had electric lights. And I mean electric lights, no plug-in, nothing else going on, a light bulb, you know, that came in. That was all government. That was all government owned. That was all government regulated. A lot of those have been sold off. And all, you know, everybody else privatized. Well, there you go. So the money has not gone back in. And you're right, if you watch the specials there, you know, there's a lot of updating and security that has to be done.
And they're not doing it.
No.
They're-
Faraday cages are not that expensive. To keep your cars or trucks running, all they would have to do is protect the computer portion of the vehicle with the ground Faraday cage, that would fix it. But right now, if electromagnetic pulse hits us, every car, every truck, everything it delivers, carries poop away, delivers fuel to any gas station, delivers groceries or anything else, is going to stop.
Or Texas, you know, it was just a matter of drain on the grid. It got so cold, they don't have the insulation, so on that most of the rest of the country. It just became that system was not to the point where it could withstand the drain on the grid. And once that happened, their grid started cascading. They were trying to turn off this, turn off that. Oh, you only get an hour of power, you get 2 hours of power. People were freezing, you know.
And also it showed where people were going out. This sounds so morbid, it's scary, but people, in order to keep warm then, they weren't thinking, they were going out and getting in their car and starting their
in the
engine.
garage.
And then they found out how many people dead in their garage, in their car.
But you know, once you get the power off, people need to think. You know, gasoline is going to go, diesel is going to go. You're not going to be able to pump that. That means trucks are not going to come in with food. That means your pharmacies are down. If you have whatever medicine you have, that's what you have. When it's gone, it's gone. restocking is not going to happen. If you're in a small emergency, local emergency, yeah, you're probably going to be all right. We're going to recover in 72 hours, maybe a week. I think the longest I've been without power in McCreary County is way back in the 90s, about a month without water also because it froze. But, you know, you're talking...
The winter of '77.
Yeah, that was one of them, then 90, we had another one. But you're talking, you know, if it's more than localized, then that's not a quick fix. You can't bring in FEMA, you can't bring in the troops, you can't bring in the Guard that do Texas or do a whole region of the United States.
But one thing they have to take into consideration too is the startup. You know, like whenever
Surge.
it goes down, yeah. Because like the people whose heater was not on at the time it went down will be on, you know, whenever it comes back up. And so it takes a great amount of power to bring it up from nothing to start.
To start.
Yeah, it does.
And those are the surges that burn out the transformer stations.
Like I say, Texas is a matter of hours of being unrecoverable.
So who regulates you guys? Who you have what rules? They follow the FCC rules. Who is your rule maker or overseer?
Well, our rulemaker, we're governed by Public Service Commission too, and
Okay.
Division of Water.
Division of
EPA is the
Federal.
yeah, the federal, but then your Division of Water is the primacy of EPA. So, yeah, everything like all this cybersecurity stuff has come from the federal level with the EPA.
Yeah, I had I had talked to Steve a while back about this, and I was just real impressed. I am very impressed that our local folks here have thought ahead
Outstanding job.
more than the state of Kentucky, and because you know how I've exposed the state EPA and the state water district and some of their faux pas. Our McCreary Water District was running way ahead on the PFOA thing, on everything, way before they decided to do something about it. And it sounds like you guys are doing the same thing. So I feel better that our local engineers and stuff are ahead of the ball game more so than the state and federal government agencies are. That you guys just seem to have your crap together, for lack of a better term, than especially the federal government.
FEMA, of course gets a lot of negative press, but once again, the whole thing has been designed around an area. 15 counties in Kentucky went down, or there's a tornado in 2 counties. It's all designed to handle small areas, to bring in resources, to get everything back up super quick. And they do a good job doing that, to get people fed, get people med, get people housed. They'll do that, okay? They'll do that for a short period of time. Once you get beyond that, then there's really no plan for large regional
And that's
areas.
what the Dennis Quaid documentary says too. It's like the federal government they've known about this for years. People have been, people like you, engineers, have been telling the people, Department of Homeland Security, hello, Houston, we got a problem here. You need to be doing something about this. And they're not, and that's why these people did these documentaries. And this one with Dennis Quaid will scare the crap out of you.
They do a lot of practice. I mean, you have FEMA at wildfires, you got FEMA doing hurricanes. Of course, we all remember what happened in New Orleans.
Yeah.
But and even that was a real stress for the resources. But like I said, it's a matter of, not locally, if you get interrupted in a section of the country or you have a cascading problem.
Right.
And they're not disconnected. There's no trip that you can, once those things start falling, there's no, it gets here, like your water, or, we're going to stop it, It just...
That's what these, maybe one of you engineers can explain that better, because I'm not sure I fully understand, like in a grid thing, the electric thing, this cascading. Somebody explain that better to me, because I kind of understand it, but I don't.
I mean, we're telecom. We're not.
I know.
We're not electrical.
But
we
I
don't
mean,
design the grids.
You're an engineer, you probably know better, and you're
Power companies are tied together. If one power company is in need of power, they will buy power from another power company, the one next door, or one who can supply them the soonest for the least. So it's a business thing, but they do feed from one another. If one power company is at their limit, and they are selling to another company, and that is included in their limit, and if that company all of a sudden has a cascading problem that draws a huge amount of current, then they'll draw that current from that next company. Well, if that next company is at their limit already, they'll start cascading. They'll start.
See, that
And
explains
first thing
it.
you know, it goes. All of them are working at their maximum, greatest profit level.
And then like you were saying, you know, there's a surge on the grid, and that particular grid can't handle that.
That's what makes it a grid. It's not
Yeah,
one
you know,
power company. It's
and
many
they're
power
at all
companies.
different levels. Some grids
So
are
they're
probably
not-
really high tech. Some grids are like Texas are very low tech. I mean, they're up and down
But
all
they're
the
all
country.
interconnected.
No, they're not all
Not all.
interconnected.
Okay,
Not all.
so, I mean, who came up with this stupid idea for them to do this selling back and forth? So they are kind of interconnected, because if we weren't, if we had our own electric grid here, and everything else went out,
Like
but ours
Texas,
didn't.
like Texas, like Texas.
But, you know, we could stay up and running as long as we weren't cascading.
Well, it's kind of designed like if one person goes down, then the rest of them can help, so them customers won't be without service.
Okay.
For example, when they chopped the telephone poles down there on the telephone guys, they didn't necessarily have to feed from that side. They could feed from the other side and still serve those customers.
You know, it's all
Similar
good.
situation.
It's all good till it ain't good. So we've been running on. Well, it's all good. Lights come on every day when I hit the switch. You know, there's no problems, and there's not been except localized 72-hour, maybe a couple weeks.
But
Okay, but
this
if we had,
research that I did on this island in that time, we were studying, our goal was to study the kill mechanisms of the electromagnetic pulses generated by nuclear detonations. We developed this information, and we knew what it could do over 50 years ago, half a century. We knew we could do this to you all. And yet, they've done nothing
federal
that I
government
know.
hasn't done anything to,
to
They've
from what I'm
hardened
hearing from you
themselves.
guys,
huh?
they've
They're
done,
hardened.
they've done nothing to correct or protect against.
It's hard to go in and harden a private business and say you're going to do this, you're going to do that, you're going to do this. This is the regulations. We all know what happens
So we
there.
probably shouldn't have privatized in the
No,
first
that's-
place
that's
the
1-800.
electric grid.
That's 1-800 Congress. But what I really want to stress to you is cascading.
Okay.
Not only power, but once the power goes, the fuel goes. Once the fuel goes, the food goes.
Because you can't
Once
go to the
food
gas
goes,
stations and run
medicine
by
goes.
power.
And then once you start cascading all this down, then you're in a real mess.
Because you can't get all that back up and going quickly.
No.
But before it gets back up and going, society is fatal.
I'm gonna have nightmares.
It's good as long as we pretend it's good.
Have you been? What they said earlier, they said that they know that people are trying to get them every day. Trying to attack them, cyber attacking.
Cyber attack,
Do you have
yeah.
the same kind of thing?
Well, we really don't have a whole lot of attacking like they do because our network is so localized.
Okay.
But their network is so widespread. And correct me if I'm speaking out of turn, but their network is so widespread, and the really only vulnerability that we have that hackers would be interested in would be our operations, just causing chaos.
Yeah.
Which we've discussed already, and then our personal information for our customer base,
Right.
which
Even if they did it, there wouldn't be enough destruction or mayhem to warrant
Right.
their doing it.
and
Because you could go out manually and start everything back up.
right, correct. Other than the power grid failing, which we have short-term
Short-term.
redundancy in place.
Most
Yeah.
of our stuff is a monetary based thing. As you said, somebody trying to do a ransomware attack, or in years past, they want to route traffic through your CO switch to some other place. In other words, I want to find a hole or some vulnerable spot in the central office, and I want to pump all my toll through you, so I get free toll,
Long distance traffic.
long distance traffic.
Ah.
So
Well,
it's
sneaky.
it's sneaky, but it's been several years. I mean, there's been defense systems built. But
Well,
that's
yeah,
a big-
we've got that blocked and firewalled, but
That was a big
if
thing,
we
Alton.
opened that up today, literally in minutes, there'd be millions of attempts. Because it's computerized.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just things sitting there hitting, pecking, looking for a hole to hit.
Yes, and that's why I asked about quantum computers, because
Yeah.
they're doing it at a rate that you can handle now. But quantum computers are going to be doing it exponentially faster.
gonna-
Okay, explain
and
what a
it can
quantum.
overload.
It's gonna be their quantum computer against somebody
Right.
else's quantum computer.
It's been,
That technology is really
since,
close.
since
just
the
around
first
corner.
computer, it's been hacker thought of this, defense thought of that, hacker thought of this. It's a back and forth game. So, yeah, you're exactly right. It's their quantum computers against ours. It's their system. I mean, what is secure this week, 3 weeks from now, it's not secure. It has to be a
Constant thing.
it's a constant improvement put on the system, different thoughts put in, different things put in. It's not a static defense line. It's not World War I and we dug trenches and we're all waiting to shoot at each other when we stick our heads up. Somebody's thinking of a different way. I mean,
Constantly.
yeah, I mean that's why World War II was blitzkrieg. You figured out how to beat the trench warfare. It's the same thing on this. Somebody comes up, somebody comes with a better defense. DDoS was a major issue for years. There's a defense system for it. Now there's somebody, so constantly DDoS software and stuff is being,
So the question becomes, what's your plan? What's your plan individually? What's the county's plan? What's the state plan? You go all the way up down through there and see what the plans are. Because when you get down to it, I told you the other day, go to your house, turn your water off, hit the breaker in the basement, see how you do for 72 hours. No cell phone, no,
Oh no,
My-
I'm
my
calling
mother-
somebody. I'm
Yeah.
calling them. I
Yeah.
can probably answer some of my
There was
phone
a
calls.
generation, there was a generation that wouldn't affect. That wouldn't affect my mom at all. If you turn off the power, you turn off the water, she'd say, oh well, the well's out there and the stove's over here, and she wouldn't even blink. You turn off the power today, watch what happens. People
I'm
would
panicking.
lose their minds. But like I said, if you think you're prepared, if you got an electric cook stove, you got electric heat, I've got a heat pump, you probably got an electric stove, microwaves, on and on it goes. Go down here, the prepper group always say, yeah, if you think you're prepared, go ahead and flip that all off for 72 hours and see what happens.
Yeah.
You'll find out.
Well,
when you do that.
because I was thinking, well, I got plenty of food. I've got 3 freezers full of food, and then he goes, and if the electric goes out, those freezers will be
You're
gone.
gonna have a heck of a barbecue for a few days.
And he was talking about that. Well, even the internet. Now, if the internet goes down, because, for a long time, that was just kind of a novelty. But now everybody's dependent on it. And the kids will kill you if the internet goes down. I mean,
But the big communication thing, we do have, an emergency network. Okay, how many people have radios left in their houses? You may have a radio in your car, but that signal goes out, the instructions go out, you're updated, no updates you, Federal Defense will update you. But how many people today have the access to? And it's common. It's on an AM, I believe. I have one of those weather radios. It does all that. It tells you. But how many people have that? Because when that cell phone goes, how do you know what's going on? How do you know where there's food? How do you know where the water's going to be? How do you know where the medical help's going to be? If you're sitting, like most of us around this area, especially if you're sitting 6 miles down the holler, how are you going to know that?
So people should at least have, correct me if I'm wrong, you should at least have enough food for at least 70 or 2 or more hours.
Per
A can-
person and water. And that's 6 gallons of water per day, if I remember correctly.
And in the wintertime, a way to get
You
heat,
probably know
we
that.
have a fireplace, so that'll help. And he's got a big, what do you call that thing? The big, looks like a potbelly stove or gas, but it's a stove, a heating stove, wood stove. So we've got a wood stove, we've got fireplaces. I'm trying to think.
And my chainsaw runs out of gas. And
Yeah, so no
But
chainsaw.
chainsaw.
electromagnetic pulse
Do it.
will fry every electrical circuit in existence. It'll fry the radio circuits.
And that's
You
what
know
a solar
radio will
flare-
work. It'll fry the electrical spark generator in your chainsaw. It'll fry every circuit in your
See, that's
truck.
what these both.
Unless you have a
Your truck
Faraday
will run,
cage. You have a Faraday.
Unless they're sitting in a Faraday cage.
That's what both of these documentaries really hit on, is not the electric, but a solar flare. They're saying we are past due for a huge solar
We
flare.
are.
Yes.
We're past due. And if at
They
this
normally occur
point,
about every 11 years.
at this point, because the way our electric grid is, and this is not y'all's fault. You guys got your crap together apparently, but all it's going to take is one, not even a high solar flare. They said a medium solar flare, and what he said would happen, a cascading event. The whole grid, electric grid, would go out, and then it would take a month and then you guys would be okay for a while, you guys would be okay for a while, but then after that, it's gonna be nothing but pure chaos, and that's just,
You know, your average supermarket, you know, restocks totally every 3 days. So those trucks are not rolling in there every 3 days to restock your local supermarkets. Then what's gone is gone, and it's gone. Remember COVID and toilet paper? It's gone, it's gone.
yeah, COVID was like
Little test.
it was kind of a test for this, cause COVID kind of made
And
everybody
then
go
people
crazy.
panicked and bought, you know, everything they could get a hold of. And
A
then
very small test.
a very small test.
Very-
Drugs, I mean, how many people are drug dependent? I mean, you know, if you run out of meds, a lot of us is not gonna last very long.
Yeah, and most your prescriptions and stuff, they won't give you more than,
30
Normally
days.
30 days.
30 days.
yeah, 30 days prescription. I have a 90-day. I just have one, but and I could live without mine. I mean, mine's hormone replacement therapy
But-
for the whole world to know. But I could live without that. I would become extremely grouchy, and my husband would probably want to strangle me. But I could live without it. And I got 90 days at a time, but you're right. I didn't even think about that. People who have to have like metformin or heart medication.
How many people on oxygen machines, and on and on and on it goes.
Yeah.
So their time is extremely limited. That's some of the things that happen in Texas, because if you're not backed up 72 hours a week personally, and that's minimal, that's bare minimal, then you're putting yourself and your family at risk.
You wanted to hit on something the last.
A little bit later. But,
Well, we only got 10 minutes left,
yeah,
so.
it's okay. You was talking about that Eunice wasn't dependent on other systems. How would you stay up operating?
When you say
If
stay
other
up,
systems went down,
I mean, if Highland Telephone was the only thing left standing, there, you could do internal calling, but long distance is down. You're not going to call anything like that. Believe it or not, your cell towers without Highland's network doesn't work. Your wireless from your phone to the tower, the rest of it's backhauled on somebody's network. A lot of the cell towers we
You're
serve.
not beaming out into space. To
No,
somebody
it's
else.
not a
You're just going to
satellite
tower.
system.
Yeah,
It's not a satellite system. You're working back and forth off of that. So, but I mean, if all the way the internet's designed, it all don't go to one spot. It's
Right.
spread, and I mean, if all the access points, the national places, which there's like. There used to be 7 or 8 major ones across the United States. It might be more now, but if those are gone, it's there's no way to communicate. There's no
And-
way out there.
and if most of the programs that are for those purposes are not always held in one particular router location. You may send a command to this router location expecting it to come back from that one, but it may have to consult with other locations.
When you're on a
before it comes
fiber
back.
network, it travels at the speed of light.
Yes.
So everything's traveling at a rate that you don't know if you're hitting a router in Chicago or
Exactly.
Atlanta,
Doesn't matter.
Dallas, San
It doesn't
Francisco,
matter. You think it's local. but it
Ashburn,
happens so quick.
Virginia.
Yeah.
It's so quick you don't know it.
But if
It's
these other
measured in
places go
nanoseconds.
out, all of a sudden, even though you're working with a local problem, it may not function because those distant router stations, and they're huge buildings full of these machines I'm talking about, if they're not functioning, then you will still lose your ability to communicate.
Again, you got to go back to what your national plan is, your regional plan is, what your state. There's plans. Your state plan is, and probably there's a county plan. So everybody really needs to be aware of what that, because there are going to be priorities. I'm not going to be a priority. You're not going to be a priority, but there's going to be priority power to hospitals. There's going to be priority power to this. Probably communications. We'll get fuel to keep their stuff going as long. Water's going to probably be a big priority. There's going to be some priorities. Hopefully, people at all levels have thought this out and have that plan.
Well, it seems to me like locally, these people have, and maybe county-wise, but I'm not impressed with the things I've exposed at the state level and how, especially with the water thing. You guys have been above and beyond. McCreary County Water District needs to run the state water district, and I'm not just saying
You're
that
really
because
good.
he's sitting here.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Really good.
Yeah, we've studied you guys,
Yeah.
so we
I'm
know.
telling you, if we, the
I
crap
do.
that happened up in Pulaski County that everybody knows, Lake Cumberland, go watch the documentary, Lake Cumberland, what really lies beneath, that probably wouldn't happen if you guys had been running the
It would
state.
not have.
It would not have happened, okay? So we're very proud of you guys, but what concerns me is, this is good, but it just sounds like that doesn't matter how good you are, if the federal government, and that's what both of these
Or
things.
private industry.
Which the federal government's supposed to be controlling and making sure they're doing their job. They're not. They're not. This one guy was talking about, and this guy's with Homeland Security. They interviewed him, and he goes, "No." He goes, "We've been telling people that for years." He goes, we're not prepared for this. If there's a solar flare, a medium solar flare, not a large one. They're expecting a large one. We're past due for a large one. If there's a medium one, he goes, the grid will go down. The whole grid will go down.
Well, regulations cost money. So once if we're Congress and you pass regulation to take care of this, then what you're saying to those private industry, you're going to have to spend the money to bring up your section of the grid, and they're going to fight that like crazy. So that's where we've been at. And that's
And
where
there
we're at
goes
right
those
now.
re-election funds.
Yeah, there goes the re-election funds. You know how the game's played.
And see, that's what we've hit 100 times. If you think that having our U.S. Congress and our state legislature too, being bribery is legal now by
Yes.
these corporations, it doesn't have an effect. Yeah, it does. And this is what we're talking about. Real quick, did you want to hit that? And then I got to hit these. I
Well,
forgot
you
to
go
do
ahead
these.
and you go ahead and do yours. It's fine.
Real quick, okay. So we have just some announcements. I promise we do. Our next show is going to be an evening of journalism. The McCreary County Public Library is sponsoring this, and I was going to ask you to be the MC of this. Anyways, we have some. It's going to be really interesting if you're interested in journalism or why people are dumb enough to do this, what we do, or any questions. Also, we have a high school journalism club. I guess it's going to come.
That's great.
And this is some of the people that are going to be there. We're going to have Steve Crabtree, a retired journalist with WKYT TV Lexington, and he's a former VP of station operations for WLW TV. We're also going to have the our own McCreary County Voice editor, Gina Jones. She's also a journalist and a good writer. Bill Estep he's a reporter with the Lexington Herald Leader. Jeff Neal, retired editor for the Somerset Commonwealth Journal. He did some excellent articles.
I'd be very interested to see what he has to say.
Excellent articles on the water problem up in Pulaski County. And then he was retired after that because he told the truth, in my humble opinion. Anyways, Janie Slavin, journalist and editor of the Sentinel Echo, and myself, former federal agent and investigative journalist with Truth or Politics. So come on out. It's going to be February 9th at the library. It starts at what time? I think 5 p.m. And we're going to even give you some snacky snacks. So we'll have some stuff. Southport National River Recreation. They're looking for assistance. Apparently some vandals hit the restrooms at the Blue Heron area near the river access parking. If you know anything about this, folks, this is one of our key tourism places. Please, if you know anything about this, you can be anonymous. Call this number, 423-215-9740, 423-215-9740, and you can leave a confidential message. Also, we got yoga at the library, Mondays at 5:30. The Lord's
I'll
Cafe.
be there for that one.
The Lord's Cafe has they're doing a fundraiser January 22nd. For information on that, 606-350-1120. It's going to be a fundraising meal, $10, and they do takeouts. And they do a lot of good work. And the McCreary County Senior Citizens, they're offering 16 older Monday through Friday. Carry-out lunches is served daily. So they do a lot of stuff for the senior citizens down there,
They
too.
really do.
They do. It's really a community center. They really do a lot of stuff.
Great job.
And the Somerset Community College is offering welding. So for enrollment in that, you talk about a career that you can make a lot of money. There's some welders that make more money than doctors and lawyers do. Right here at the McCreary Center, 606-376-7505. And the McCreary Fair Board, they do a lot of good work too. They're giving a free giveaway January 13th, 12 to 2. Please make sure to bring a box to carry your free items. So anybody that needs coats or gloves or something like that, you can get a hold of them. And all these people are on Facebook too, and I've posted all of these. So you wanted...
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about security camera systems. They have kind of filtered out a lot of the new systems where they had the chips in them where ET phoned home, you know, that had the back doors, or at least the ones that they know of. But back in the day, whenever I set a security system up, I got a hold of Highland and got a static IP address where it was just a few people that had access to that. The modern security systems set up through a third party where you connect to them, they store you, they have access to yours, and you don't know who these people are. And it's kind of dangerous, which I would suggest to people. I think a lot of the new systems will allow you to set up a static rather than going through these servers, and I think it'd be a very good idea for people to do that.
Good point.
Okay, folks, we're out. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you for Highland, and thank you for McCreary County Water District, and thank you for Larry and Dan
It's
and
very
Michael.
educational. We appreciate
And
it.
yeah, I hope we educated. I'm scared to death now after watching these 2 documentaries. I wish you hadn't sent those to me. I watched them like, oh my God. So, but anyways, hopefully our federal government will get their act together as well as our local people have. Probably not, but you know, one can only hope. But anyway, folks, our next show will be the Evening of Journalism. You can come live and watch it, but it'll be carried live on Facebook and live through MBR TV. Come out and watch that. Come out and fire some questions at us and stuff. I think it should be very educational about, you know, what journalists go through, because I think a lot of people, what they think journalism is and what it really is 2 different things. And it's a lot of documents is what it is. It's like in police work when I was a federal agent. It's 99% boring and then 1% of pure chaos and panic. That's what mostly journalism is too. So anyway, coming out.
And when are we going to do the show about how to hack your local voting machine?
We're going to do a whole show on that too.
Yeah.
We will, and we'll try to get some experts in on that too, because that's another problem too. And if
Look
I was
on YouTube, you'll see they've got instructions.
okay, so we're going to do a show on that too. So stay with us, folks. We will see you next time, and thank you for our viewers. Thank you. We'll see you next time on Truth or Politics. Thanks.